Unitarian Universalist Church in New Braunfels in 1995, the odds didn't look good. UU churches were few and far between in Texas and found mostly in larger cities. In New Braunfels, however, there lived a few folks active in progressive causes. Among them, these three: Thea Cheshire, Jan Estes, and Darlene Hicks. Thea, who had previously belonged to a UU congregation, invited her activist New Braunfels friends to carpool to UU Sunday services in Austin. They all liked what they saw and what they heard, but it was a long drive. Wouldn't it be great if we had a UU church in New Braunfels? Thea would muse to Jan, and Jan would agree that it would be splendid. Two dreamers. Then, one fateful day, Jan and Darlene met by chance in the grocery store. As they were chatting, Darlene said to Jan, "Wouldn't it be great if we had a UU church here in New Braunfels?" That's three dreamers. For Jan, Darlene's question was the catalyst and the tipping point. Jan left the store immediately and drove straight to Thea's house to tell her what Darlene had just said. Thea didn't say a word, just stared at Jan, put on her glasses, looked up a telephone number, and called a UU organizer in Austin who gave her advice, support, instructions, and a game plan for starting a church. We refer to Thea as our matriarch, and she always will be. But what should because it was Jan's action that day that started the whole process that would eventually result in the founding of this church. Jan didn't go home first to put away her groceries. She knew what she needed and wanted to do, and she took decisive action. She went directly to Thea's house. Thea made the call, and it wasn't long before the original founders were sitting in Thea's living room. Our first services were held at Thea's, then later at Faith United Church of Christ, whose minister, Scott Martin, couldn't have been a better friend to us, and then at the New Braunfels Senior Center, until one Sunday we arrived to find that we'd been locked out of the Senior Center because someone there apparently objected to the topic of our service that day, a comparison of the pagan feast Samhain with Halloween. My husband has a vivid memory of Jim Barry standing by the padlocked door saying, "Well then, we'll just get our own place." That was another moment of commitment and decisive action. Jim Barry and Paul McGaffick found this Alvis Lane property, and we bought it, partly self-funded by notes from members of the congregation. Dwight Micklethwait drew up the architectural plans, and we found a contractor who would allow us to do some of the work ourselves in order to save money. Soon, we were up on ladders, painting walls, putting in plants and trees, installing cabinets, and building bookshelves. Without the initiative and commitment of so many that I couldn't name them all, we might still be renting an ordinary old place somewhere instead of marveling at the light-filled beauty of our church home. Thank you for sharing your photos and thoughts today about what first drew you to UUNB, what has stood out for you over the years, and what has kept you coming back. I'll start with some of your memories about our UUNB children. In the early days, there were very few families with young children. Mary Hitch recalls that during her term as president, we made an effort to increase the participation of young families by offering a monthly parents' night out, an evening of free childcare with crafts, snacks, pizza, movies, games, music, and good adult supervision. Both parents and children loved the program, and several of those young families went on to make important contributions to the life of this congregation. Mary Hitch and Diane Pepin remember how Bryce, Paula Pebsworth's son, used to greet them at the parents' night out. He would run across the room and throw himself into their arms, almost knocking them down. Bryce, now 6'5" and a junior at the University of Texas, will always be remembered as a wonderfully rambunctious kid, hurtling through the air, completely confident that either Mary or Diane would be able to catch him and remain standing. For Mary Powell, the summer camp of 2008 is a standout memory. She writes, "We had quite a few participants, children attending and adults helping. I have a special picture in mind of Grandmother Sycamore, wearing gray beads, sitting in a chair with a bunch of wide-eyed children before her as she wove her Native American tales. In addition to stories, there were dances, music, drumming, crafts, refreshments, and free play outside. The whole facility was in use, with adults and children interacting. Respect for another culture was being taught, and we were having a good time." Now, here is a magical moment with a child that I like to think back on. I wish I had a picture or a video of it. At one of our Sunday services, we were all sitting in a circle, mesmerized by Yesenia's voice as she sang, "I Hope You Dance." In the middle of the song, she went over to little Anna Underberg and extended her hand, inviting Anna to dance with her. I had a moment of anxiety, fearing that this was not going to end well, that Anna, only about 4 or 5 years old at the time, would be too shy and would refuse to dance with Yesenia in the middle of a room full of adults. But Anna danced beautifully and gracefully and without any self on Ray's face as he watched his daughter dance was something I'll never forget. Favorite recent children's activities are the really, really exciting Go Green Halloween celebration, the Easter cans hunt, not the Easter eggs, the Easter cans that go to the food pantry, biannual intergenerational services, a wildly successful field trip to the Whitty Museum arranged by Al Powers, and making art together, like this beautiful mandala created from all natural materials. I'll move now to the UUNB's super strong focus on nature and environmentalism. So strong, in fact, that we suffer panic attacks if we get to HEB and discover that we've forgotten our cloth shopping bags. We have hosted and participated in many Earth Day and Earth Hour celebrations, and we've presented dozens of services and programs on environmentalism. our campus has been certified as a wildlife habitat. Under Diane Pepin's leadership, we became certified by the UUA as a green sanctuary. Amy Dunsmore leads an interesting Zoom discussion group on growing and eating our own food. Jessica Blazingame Acox, our RE director, has made taking care of the earth a constant theme in the children's RE lessons. Volunteers regularly weed and water our plants, our native and adapted plants, which were selected because they are drought resistant and which we can water with our rainwater collection tank. We have some nature-loving campers among us. On several camping trips to Texas state parks, they braved storms and sleet, a wrenched knee, overturned kayaks, marauding raccoons, and get this, mating rattlesnakes. But they loved the camaraderie of exploring trails together, seeing wildlife, cooking and eating fantastic camp food, having and listening to the sounds of the woods at night as they drifted off to sleep in their tents. Way back when, a group of us women got together every month to hike and swim and visit parks, farms, gardens, and other places of natural beauty. We called ourselves the Earth Mothers, and we created strong bonds and wonderful memories together on these nature outings. Here is one of those wonderful memories from our trip to the Pedernales Falls State Park. Social justice is another high priority at UUNB. Judy Godinez says that one of the things that drew her to this fellowship was our activism in social justice projects. She writes, "The idea of service-based humanitarian efforts fit with my beliefs about what an organized religion could and should do. And this was the form of social interaction I enjoyed most." UUNB has consistently supported Family Promise. We show up every year in our yellow t-shirts for the MLK March. Construction work doesn't scare us, as you can see in these pictures from the Habitat for Humanity Women Build project. We created a strong interdenominational refugee support network that organizes projects such as stuffing backpacks and gathering supplies, gifts, and clothes for refugees, and driving these items down to the border, as well as helping at detention centers and the San Antonio bus station. We lobby and rally and demonstrate for voting rights, with many of us active in the League of Women Voters. UUNB volunteers have worked for years for the food bank and for Meals on Wheels. We support LGBTQ and feminist causes. I may have forgotten some of them, but we never met a social justice cause Alan Summers, Chili Ornelas, and Ted Mills have been the leaders for many of these projects, somehow mobilizing us to do as a group far more than we could have ever accomplished as individuals. And as Judy says, this activism has also provided a wonderful form of social interaction for us. In addition to our commitment to children, environmentalism, and social justice, our involvement in the arts has been constant, starting with our fine Steinway piano, donated early on by Jackie Russell and Jane Miller, and played not only by our own exceptional pianists, Bob Carabinas, Candy Carpenter, Meredith Patterson, and Yesenia McNett, but also by the music faculty of the Texas State University for some of the most exquisitely beautiful programs I have ever witnessed, thanks to the efforts of music lovers among us. But we were of the opinion that there probably were not enough strong singers among us to form our own choir. Yesenia, however, was undeterred, and because of her magic, we now have the UUNB Singers, a choir of unforgettable beauty and harmony, as we saw in our prelude this morning. We have 2 active book clubs and a surprisingly large contingent of writers among us who have presented poetry readings, journaling workshops, and performances of original plays. Congregants often write their own sermons and sometimes illustrate them with drama, music, and even dance. One of the high points of our Sunday services has been the weekly story for all ages, because, as it turns out, we have some excellent storytellers among us. Candy Carpenter and Barb Morrell have headed up art classes and art projects, inviting and including all of us. And of course, we are forever grateful to Dwight for the beauty of his architectural design. I used to think that church folks had to be saintly and serious. Plain funny. We never miss an opportunity to dress up in goofy costumes, to crack jokes and tell tall tales, or to sing and dance with bananas on our head. Sometimes our life together is hilarious, like the time Thea was giving a sermon at the senior center and her pants started slipping down. Someone came to Thea's rescue, pulling her pants up just in time. Thea laughed, and we all laughed. Thea definitely set the tone for this congregation, a tone of laughter and joy. In the early days, we had the guidance of Les Pugh, a wonderfully provocative minister. But then, for about 20 years, we handled all the details of congressional life ourselves. Members contributed amazing amounts of time, talent, and just hard work. I bow down to all of you who have served as officers, board members, committee chairs, and committee members. And that's just about all of you. By participating in these small groups and advancing us toward consensus, you have kept us together and moving forward. Thank you for your enthusiasm, generosity, leadership, and stamina. And thank you most of all for the kindness you have shown one another over the years, for mentoring children, for generously encouraging each other in all our individual efforts, and for your support in our times of illness and grief. Dawn Wales wants us to know that she couldn't have made it through Bruce's struggle with cancer without the help of members of this congregation, most notably Judith and Cora Ferrari and Ted Mills. She says, "I couldn't have asked for better friends during that difficult time." As I think back over our history, I would like to make special mention of Jose Contreras and Romelia Escamilla, whose excellent strategic planning sessions helped us define where we wanted to go as a congregation. Here we are, planning our future in a semicircle, planning our future. In 2017, we were able to take the next step, and Reverend Ade Krabah joined us as our part-time minister. We have great appreciation for her knowledge, experience, intelligence, and warm smile. I remember the first Sunday I walked into the door of the Senior Center. Thea and Jency greeted me as if my presence there was one of the best things that had ever happened. Many of you have recounted the same story of feeling unbelievably welcome the first time you visited. And one reason we keep coming back is that here there is no guilt tripping. Our participation is invited, but never coerced. Often we're lucky and we find a niche for ourselves, some fulfilling activity that makes use of our special talents and abilities, which we then share with a happy heart, but not out of a sense of obligation or guilt. This really is a welcoming and accepting community. I'll finish now with the words of Susan Yarborough, a former immigration judge and now UU minister, who says this: "During the 3 years I spent in Austin, I was honored to preach at UUNB several times. I can't remember who first invited me, maybe Jackie Russell, but I immediately loved the congregation, and it quickly became my favorite place to preach. I graduated and moved back to Houston in 2017, but had I stayed in the Central Texas area, I would have joined UUNB, as I felt so at home with all the people there, and still do. In addition to Jackie, especially memorable to me are Jan Estes, Diane Rahm, Meredith Patterson, and Ted Mills. Each of them personifies the trifecta of qualities I found in every member of UUNB: smart, funny, and kind. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? No, Susan, I don't think so. And it all started with one moment in a grocery store aisle. So, here's to Jan and many others along the way, with love, admiration, and gratitude. Happy anniversary to us all.